This week for evidence synthesis, we have executive functioning.
Executive functioning is conceptualized as a supervisory control system responsible for planning, correcting errors, directing attention, processing information, and inhibiting habitual responses. Cognitive functional, or CogFun, is developed with a basis in cognitive rehabilitation, often used with those diagnosed with ADHD. Research states intervention targets emotional, cognitive, and environmental barriers of the individuals and their ability to participate in the context of the occupation. Key mechanisms for change include metacognition, metacognitive learning, occupation-centered environmental support, and positive engagement. And this also includes executive strategy acquisition. In our articles, Article 1 is an experimental randomized control trial level 2, and it was found with significant time and group intervention found that executive functioning in the intervention group and participation from children with ADHD is supported by CogFun. For Article 2, the level of evidence was an outcome group 1 pre-post study level 4, and the results found significant improvements in executive functioning, self-awareness, and quality of life for adults with ADHD. CogFun improved goal-based occupational performance in adults. And in Article 3, the level of evidence, it was an experimental CCT level 3, and the results found small to medium changes occurred for executive function in small children with ADHD when using the CogFun intervention, and parent-centeredness was found to be the most crucial in parent feedback in the intervention. And then for our CogFun synthesis, evidence supports the use of CogFun for individuals across the lifespan who have been diagnosed with ADHD to help increase self-awareness and improve executive functioning. Evidence finding supports parent involvement in CogFun programs when used with children, suggesting that parents are the agents of transfer for these children using strategies from the intervention into the home. And this intervention is relevant to occupational therapy practice with the promotion of self-awareness while focusing on the environment that the individual is in, promoting change in the context of the occupation, and facilitating change in the environment can produce greater metacognitive changes across the lifespan.
Next, we have martial arts. Martial arts refers to a wide variety of traditional combat practices that encompass a wide range of disciplines, techniques, and philosophies. The primary focus of martial arts is often on physical, cognitive, and emotional development, and the holistic approach of martial arts promotes improvements in various domains of executive functioning. So our first article for martial arts was an experimental randomized control trial, which is level 2. The results stated that a Chinese mind-body exercise effectively improved self-control and reduced emotional or behavioral issues in children with ASD. Our second article was also an experimental, but this is a controlled clinical trial, so this is a level 3. The results stated that significant improvements were observed in the group that underwent a 6-month martial arts intervention on several measures of executive functioning, which included inhibition and shifting the rate and speed of cognitive processing compared to the sports as usual group. And then our third article for this was an experimental study. It was a randomized control trial, and it was a level 2. The results stated that all 3 core domains of executive functioning, which are working memory, behavioral inhibition, and cognitive flexibility, were improved in 8 to 11-year-olds diagnosed with ASD who participated in a mixed martial arts intervention. The synthesis for martial arts, evidence supports the use of martial arts as an intervention to improve both physical and cognitive functions, for example, executive functioning, amongst vulnerable populations like ASD and at-risk youth. Evidence supports that martial arts can play a significant role in improving various aspects or domains of executive functioning, such as inhibition, cognitive flexibility, and the speed of processing. Implementing aspects of martial arts practices prove to enhance the executive functioning by combining the physical activity, mental discipline, emotional regulation, and social interaction, thereby promoting the cognitive and physical well-being, which is relevant to our scope of practice.
And then for our last intervention is the multisensory approach of sensory integration. So multisensory information and executive functioning are tied to learning and focusing attention in children. Many children with sensory integration difficulties also face difficulties with executive functioning and higher level cognitive skills. Changes in the brain structure that control motor and cognition are often impaired or structurally different in children with ADHD, ASD, or IDDs, impacting the child's ability to produce goal-directed behaviors and higher level brain functions. Addressing executive functioning through multisensory approaches addresses whole brain goal-directed activities. For all three of our articles, they were experimental randomized control trials, being a level 2. So in our article 1, the results found that three-dimensional sensory objects promoted cognitive aspects of executive function. Multisensory input showed moderate significance when used with visual and tactile sensory information. Our article 2 results found that statistically significant results came from sensory integration training for boys with ADHD. Training results showed increase in executive functioning scores. And then for our final article, the conclusion found that sensory integration therapy proved to be an effective intervention for children with ASD, improvements in balance and executive functioning over the course of 8 weeks of sensory interventions. So our multisensory integration synthesis evidence supported using sensory integration for children who are neurodivergent. Having a sensory-rich environment allows executive functioning skills to foster. Skills then become learned and integrated into activities. 2 of the articles highlighted the positive changes in cortical structures of the brain when utilizing multisensory integration interventions for those with atypical neuronal connections. This change in cortical brain structures adapt and improve executive functioning skills. This intervention is relevant in occupational therapy practice because sensory integration and in the individual's natural environment can promote or inhibit their ability to function in that environment. Creating and integrating multisensory experiences for the individual can promote greater occupational performance and cognitive abilities.
The clinical application for CogFun, it's applicable for individuals with ADHD for improving self-awareness and executive functioning. And when in the person's environment, their occupational performance and satisfaction is increased. For multisensory, it works towards increasing sensory threshold and integration, changing the cortical structures in the child's brain. And the multisensory approach often promotes engagement of occupations, thus facilitating executive functioning. For martial arts, it improves various domains of executive functioning, specifically in vulnerable populations, and it's a holistic approach that promotes the physical, cognitive, psychological, and emotional well-being of the child. Some future study ideas that we came up with was that they should research the effects of executive functioning programs for a greater array of diagnoses or conditions such as IDDs, TBIs, strokes, etc., as well as populations beyond children. It should investigate larger sample sizes, including using a variety of research methods, for example, systematic reviews, qualitative studies, etc. There should be a study about long-term transfer of skills and executive functioning changes into the home environment. A study about investigating the child's perspective of the CogFun interventions, research focusing on the cognitive capacity of neurodivergent child while participating in the multisensory integration, and then research comparing the efficacy of specific martial arts practices such as judo, karate, mixed martial arts, etc., on increasing the executive functioning. And then these are our questions, and then these are our references.